Hello and welcome to today's online celebration of Juneteenth with the Levine Museum of the New South. My name is Erica Duncan, Community Relations Manager at Bank of America and our longtime partnership with the museum. Bank of America is the proud sponsor of the 2020-2021 Family Day series, and this year's kickoff could not be more timely in that of the Juneteenth celebration. The recognition of this momentous occurrence in our history is important now more than ever. So thank you to my friends at Levine for being creative, for being committed to bringing today's experience to our community virtually. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but I'm sure you knocked it out of the park. Enjoy, everyone, and have a good day.
We're gonna cut it up so you can get close to the shirt. Close to for me, for hands, the squeegee, things of that nature. And you'll cut it up. Leave it like this angle. My perspective is like this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Hasan. Happy Juneteenth. I'm so really excited to just be here with you today to share time and space. And the work that I do in the world is poetry and spoken word and using the power of our stories, especially our brown people, black people stories. To create change, to build bridges of understanding, to celebrate our history and our present and our future. And I'm really excited to be able to share some of that with you here on Juneteenth. Did I say happy Juneteenth? Happy Juneteenth. Something that's interesting about me is that I grew up in a smaller town, Statesville, North Carolina. You might have heard of it. And my dad helped to start one of the first Juneteenth celebrations there in Statesville. And I remember the very first one, we were in a park that was not far from my home in our neighborhood. And Juneteenth was something that became bigger and bigger each year. But I remember that first year, somehow he had gotten some black cowboys to come out there. And these were men who would arrange for us to ride the horses. And I rode my first horse there on the south side of Statesville on celebrating Juneteenth weekend. And it was a very scary experience. But I always have that memory. And I remember my father and my mother teaching us that Juneteenth was a time that we definitely needed to acknowledge and understand the importance of and significance of, because of what it meant for our past as Black people in this country and our present and our future. So today what I'll do is share some stories and some poetry with you that I've created that celebrates and educates and amplifies the voices of Black people. I'll start out with a poem that I wrote a few years ago after I got a little bit weary and tired of a lot of the pieces that I was sharing being about our pain. And we know that there's no shortage of trauma as it relates to Black communities in this country, well, all over the world, really, to go around. But I wanted to also I saw the importance of sharing those pieces. But also we're a very beautiful and diverse and resilient people, and I want to tell those stories too. And this poem, as I prepared it for today, it just reminded me, with everything that's going on in our world right now, that we are still rising and we're still moving forward. So this is Rise Forward. I have lived to see it with mine own eyes, the rise of my people, the awakening of our spirit, the dawn of a new day. I can feel it with every bone in my existence. Our ancestors whisper and move, forge forward, push harder, run faster, go that way. I can feel it with every inch of my existence, the tides rising, our love for self re-emerging. I see us reaching for the lessons of old, holding on to the stories that we've been told, building together, growing together, getting on track, getting on purpose. I can see it with my own eyes. Our great, great, great grandparents' prayers being answered, the fruits of their labor, the seed bursting up from beneath the soil. They planted the trees, hoping that in some generation, that shade that came as a result will push their grandchildren forward. I feel our shoulders broadening, finally gaining strength enough to hold on, steady enough to carry our own history, thick enough to reach down, pull our little brothers and sisters up to say, hold on to my grasp because you're coming along with me. This time is our time, this moment. Everything else has led us to here. All of the sacrifices deeply entrenched in our existence, all of the rich royal fortitude flowing within our blood. This time is the right time. It's every single thing that our ancestors dreamed of. Our crowns have been bought and paid for. Our investment has matriculated for over 400 years. It was through the forced sacrifice of every single thing tied to our history and culture. It has been sealed and delivered in every generation's blood, sweat, and tears. This earth, it's our inheritance. We are standing on sacred land. We hold on to the hands that built this, the minds that created this. And if anyone is equipped to change this with the courage and will to create and wisdom to understand that it will take the elevation of our consciousness, collective unity, the desire to grow and build, invest and divest, structure and restructure, take back our children, take hold of our communities. I see it forming with my own eyes. The new Africa that was at the forefront of my father's dreams. They knew that they might not get to the promised land with us, but it didn't stop them from working to provide us with all of the courage and will to survive that we might need. I feel it with the swelling of the ocean, the trembling of the sea. We are shaking things up. I can see it in the brown faces beaming with pride. We are reaching deep into our history and redefining Black love. This time, right now, has been perfectly crafted for us to pull from every ounce of fight that we have left on the inside. Our intrinsic nature, our will to survive, the pen has been lifted and the ink has been dried. We can live the rest of our lives as royalty, standing in confidence in front of the world, taking our proper place. Let them throw every single thing that they can at us and not be burdened down by its weight. We are properly prepared for glory. The direct descendants of kings and queens, the great, great, great grandchildren of those who were enslaved. It's time to cash in that check that our ancestors paid so we can plant trees for future generations. And when they get to the place where they need to benefit from the shade, we will whisper into their essence, forge forward, push harder, run faster, my child, go that way. That poem gets me a little bit emotional, but it's a piece that I wrote to remind me of our history and of my unique responsibility to continue to speak our stories in the most beautiful and responsible ways possible. You get that charge as well to speak your stories, to own your history, the good parts and the bad parts of it. And that's how we change the world, you know? So everyone, I will assume that everyone knows that essentially we are living during a time where racial justice is something that has been on the forefront of every news station for quite a while now. And I mean, we're in the middle of one of the most grand uprisings that many will see in a lifetime all over the world. Um, and one thing that I've noticed is the narrative about like what it means to be black and black people, largely in like the media and things of that nature, has been about oppression and the trauma that we've experienced. And while those are true parts of our existence, I just can't help but think like we don't need people to feel sorry for us, right? Like we need for you to stand up for what's right, but we also need for you to know and acknowledge just how beautifully amazing we are. And that starts with us knowing and acknowledging that. And I believe that we do. Um, but I wrote this piece a couple of days ago after sort of the uprisings had started. And I woke up over in the middle of the morning to pray. And afterwards, I thought to myself, um, this is time to write a poem not about anything else but our beauty. And so this came a few years later after the one that you just heard, but it's got similar themes. But I thought it was important to share this, and it's just really simply called Beautiful and Black. There are those that would have you believe that you're beautiful, not beauty enough to coexist with theirs. That your magnificent don't shine the way that you without a doubt know that it shines. There is a whole wide world of insecurity and immaturity, hatred and instability that would give every ounce of their existence to erase and eradicate an existence like mine. A light this blinding, a goodness this pure and serene, a majestic glow, a divine like flow that moves with the kind of ease and effortlessness that only exists within the confines of their dreams. There is a whole nother category of excellence, of heaven sent, of light and love, of life and liberty that rests within your bones, that exists within my bones, a simplicity, a sensibility, a reality and rationality that threatens the very foundation that everything wrapped around their being depends on to exist, leans on to remain relevant. There is mighty powerful simply in your presence. There is freedom in your intelligence. And our lives mattering is a birthright, a truth of our existence that can never truly be disregarded if we move with the insistence that we hold us up, that we speak our truths, that we honor our legacies and stories, that they are ours to find inspiration within and ours to give definition and meaning to. Because greater than any of the traumatic parts of our narrative exists the reality that we are a symbolic symbol of the will to fight, the audacity to live and love with all of our might, the living example of carrying on to our ancestors' plights. We are real, live, magical matter floating through the universe, a force of Black brilliance and innovation, one of the most beautiful and complicated, feared yet fundamental beings to grace this earth. And that can be frightening for those who understand our worth. But we uphold our worthy. We remember our dignity, celebrate our unique, unmatched ability to add flavor and freedom to everything that we touch. Through trials and trauma, we reach out and we hold on to us. For tough times don't last always, but strong lineage withstands. Bloodlines of greatness and grandeur must always win. This Blackness is dripping in sacrifice and success. This Black life is blooming and blossoming. This Black life is blessed. This Black life is ready and resilient. It's peace and patience. This Black love, this Black life is self-care and self-love. This Black life is goodness and greatness. And we are exactly who we need to hold on to us, to keep us together, and to keep our existence intact. We are the move and the movement, the resist and the resistance, brave and beautiful, beautiful and Black. It's one of my new favorite pieces of mine because I love us, right? And that's what we're celebrating today. Like us, our freedom, our movement, the things that we're willing to do to hold us down, to hold our communities together, and to hold our families together. This next poem is not one that was built for like any type of rally or protest, or I wasn't commissioned to write it for a program. I just started thinking one day about what Black love, the kind that I saw with my mom and my dad, what that meant, what it felt like, the metaphors and parallels that came with Black love and revolution. And so I decided to write this. It's a short piece that's sort of like just comparing sort of revolution to the Black man and to the Black woman. It is incomplete, right? It's a piece that has many other layers to it because we are not just this, right? Like Black love looks so many different ways, but this is really just a personal poem written from my perspective based on what I experienced with my family. It's called Love Revolution. Hold revolution in your arms. Promise her you won't be gone long. Tell her stories of your past. Hold her through the night. Stroke trust into her skin and make what they've made wrong right. Hug her like tomorrow you are going to war. Hug her like tomorrow you might not walk back through that door. Love her, soldier. Straighten your back. Let her find peace in your embrace. Let her find God in your acts. Caress her, brother. Hold her like there is danger outside. Plant your future generations within her. Teach her the secrets of your tribe. Love her like tomorrow isn't promised, like everything else in the world is secondary. There is power in your presence. Black love is revolutionary. Sister, rub revolution's back. Caress the world out of his shoulders. Take revolution back. Be a cover for him when the night's a little colder. Shield him. Guard him, whisper sweet somethings into his essence, stand with him, stay with him, find peace in his quiet, find joy in his presence. Sister, tell him you understand, but tell him that you don't. Hold his truth, hold his hand when the rest of the world won't. King him, crown him, let revolution reveal to you his plans. Circle him, surround him, and let him find the comfort in being a man. Love him like tomorrow isn't promised, like everything else in the world is secondary. When our souls connect, Black love, it's revolutionary. And like I said, that's a personal piece that sort of helped me to understand a lot about the Black love that I experienced between my mom and my dad in my home. And I chose to share that one with you all because I want to be able to not just talk about like the hard parts, but also to reveal the softness. I think that one thing that's important to show and showcase during this time is that what the things that we want for our families and our lives, and that freedom, which is what we're supposed to be celebrating today, gives us, is the freedom to love in a way that feels comfortable and right for us, however that might feel for each person individually.
No justice, no peace. Shout out to the Levine Museum for rocking with us, MacFly Fresh, making sure that we keep the word out that Black Lives Matter, and that there's a lot of beautiful Black businesses out here in Charlotte, North Carolina, making it happen for the cause, locally, nationally, and internationally. A threat to justice anywhere is injustice everywhere. I think I said that quote right. But remember, MacFly Fresh, the Levine Museum, Charlotte, North Carolina, we're dope Charlotte artists, represent Black Lives Matter. Happy Juneteenth.
I want to shift over directly. I do a lot of storytelling events that center women, and that doesn't change when it comes to Black women and Black girls. Um, this is a very short piece that, again, is more of a personal piece, but I wrote it just thinking about a lot of things that Black girls go through. Um, and it's called Angele. You have held on to the weight of generational trauma like it is a requirement of your existence. The gravitational pull of the pain that came before you, the terminal hurt that never quite exited your mama's system is lingering around, waiting on you, lurking dormant in place, ready to claim you as a victim. Everything logical says that you are up next. All of the studies and research, socio and psychological tests suggest a future of sadness, pain, and neglect, heartache, loneliness, premature death. But yet, you are the gift, the presence, the persistence of joy that we have all been waiting for, working for, sacrificing for, the open heart and open source of love that has always been here but has often been ignored. You are the hope of happiness, the audacious audacity of the dreams that you and we all deserve, the soft and gentle, the infinite yet instrumental peace that isn't easily defined but is seen and heard, it's felt and feels, it is exposed and revealed. You are the type of beautiful that conquers, the force of love that heals. It really is one of my greatest pleasures to be able to lift the stories and experiences of Black girls and Black women, especially as I know them. I think that we are the cornerstone of many things, but especially our families. And when we talk about celebrating our emancipation, we cannot talk about that without just really like laser focusing on the contribution of Black women. This next piece that I'm going to share, it's called Magic. You know, we know that I think that Black girl magic is a term that has been coined and used for the past few years over and over again. And it's just such a brilliant term because there's just something about showing up as a Black girl, Black woman, in our really unique way that we do, that the only way to describe it is that it does feel like magic. I have not always been in spaces where the magic was celebrated or lifted in the way that it needed to be. And this poem derived from working in a space where my Black girl magic was utilized but didn't feel like it was appreciated. And so this poem is a reminder to Black girls and Black women of our magic, but more than anything, it was a reminder to myself. So here we go. They see you, that extra thing inside that they just can't quantify. They feel you, that piece of persuasion, that something special that you bring to every occasion, your gift in the situation, your innovation. All of that special fairy dust that just follows you around. Your whimsical way with words that makes the most simple of subjects appear profound. Your creativity that goes beyond creativity is something innate inside of you. Your spirit, your magnificence, your peace and your purpose, it just always shines through and they see you, need you, require your stuff to make their stuff a success. And while they may try with everything that they have on the inside, your average effort seems to be greater than their very best. And they hate that, despise that, because the work that they do doesn't measure up to your natural talents. And while they are struggling to keep up, where you find ease, they find a challenge. Where they find instability, you find balance. And naturally, you were created with strength and stability to hold generations on your back. And while some may hate it, find themselves frustrated, they can never understand what you have endured to make you indestructible like that. And you are gifted, so uniquely gifted, to create beautiful bounties out of nearly nothing, because you have a history of turning rags into riches, another person's nothing into something. You create vision in darkness, find purpose and possibility within the depths of despair, turn catastrophes into miracles, open trap doors and windows when they didn't even think to look there. You are ascending to heights that others can't begin to reach, with or without formal education, with or without a degree, using your natural talents to create a masterpiece because you got that stuff that they just can't teach. You see, You have mastered the art of speaking their language while speaking your truth, grinning and bearing while making plans to cut them loose. And while they seek to wish it away, try to find ways to duplicate your course, you know that they won't bring the beauty that you bring because they weren't the original source. And as they take credit for your work, get praised and promoted for all that you do, it becomes apparent they love your Black girl magic. They just don't love you. But as you ascend in greatness, sharpen your skills, define your purpose, focus on being a blueprint for the next generation and decide that you are definitely worth it. Worth doing what you have to do to get where you want to be. Worth internalizing your truth until you can finally speak free. You work your work by day. You cultivate your dreams by night. You hold your vision close to your chest until it is ready to see the light. And just like that, your moment will appear, no longer standing in the distance. Our time is here, and no one has to give you permission to take what is yours, to stand firmly in your excellence, to kick down doors, to raise the standards, to beat your own time, to achieve more than even you thought that you could achieve, to stand with your head held high at the front of the line, to break through barriers and live purposely with passion. This day is yours. Here's ours, our moment for Black girl magic. Ooh. That poem is less of a poem and probably more of a story. For me and for so many other women, I think it's really important. For me, it was a very it took some personal vulnerability and some truth, you know, learning and acknowledging to write that piece about where I was at that moment in my life. Um, and with that, it helped me to grow immensely. Um, and that is just what I want to talk about before I do this last piece, which is the power of owning and loving our stories, the good and the bad of them. As many of you might know, deeply wrapped into Black history, as it dates all the way back to our ancestry in Africa, is the sharing and preservation of stories. Our stories are essentially everything that we have to hold on to keep our legacies and our traditions and the things that make us really important and beautiful and magic alive. So our stories for generations have been sort of captured and held on to and shared. And just because we have easier ways to communicate with each other now, that doesn't mean that we get to stop learning and owning and speaking and sharing our stories, because our stories are not our own. We only live and exist here for a finite amount of time here on earth, and then we're gone. But what we can leave behind, what the next generation can grow from and benefit from and learn from, are our stories. So we have to choose courage. We have to tell the truth of our experiences, the really good truths and the really hard truths as well, because our stories don't belong just to us, they belong to our future. um, and with that, I'm going to end with a poem that I wrote a few years ago. We're running up on maybe 3 years now, and it's called "Your Story Is Not Your Own." And I want everybody to sort of listen to this and soak it in, regardless of how young or old you might be, and know that your story is so valuable. It's not your own, and we have to keep telling them in every way possible. This world can be a big bad place. Chew you up and spit you out in a minute. Have you questioning whether or not you belong in this place, seeking, searching for your space and position. So what do? When you are intent on changing things, to make a haven out of your home, when you are called to battle, forced on the front lines, you strap up your armor and realize that your story is not your own. Deeply embedded in all of our beings is a story waiting to be told. Buried uniquely in each experience is a lesson waiting to unfold. Each and every moment, every situation and circumstance, there is no such thing as coincidence. This is not by happenstance. Our lives, our purpose, our stories, it's our service. You see, there is something so magical about living the human experience with those standing right beside you. Connected to how we are supposed to show up in the world, it is here right now, so let it guide you. All of the pain, the joy, every single thing that life has taken you through will set you free if you submit. Your story is waiting on you. And your community is too. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time. Every second and minute is a moment that is passing us by, and you are only gifted with one single lifetime. And if in that lifetime, if you own the power of your perspective, you will realize that it is the greatest of your assets, your own superpower, your secret weapon. It can shift conversations and open up doors, create and build relationships, reshape the community, and even up the score. It can erase hate and bias, speak truth to power, expose hypocrisy and lies, help another individual view from your lens, experience life from a different set of eyes. It's your perspective, your story. If you let it, it could change or save lives. You see, this this was given to you. All of your life experiences, everything good and bad, and everything that's wrapped up in it, assigned to your purpose, designed for you to go through. And while it is not solely your own, your story is waiting on you, hoping that you'll dig extremely deep, be as honest and open with yourself as you possibly can, expose your heart, extend your hand, use your story to empower those around you, break barriers, build connection, honor that the only way in is through. We are building a community, and if that is our initiative, we must realize that the only way we give light to our story is when we use it as an agent of change and when we freely give of it. See, if you are on the receiving end of this message, this is a gentle reminder that there is work to do. Start within. There is power in your perspective. If you are to change the world, your story is waiting on you. Happy Juneteenth, y'all. Use this day to learn, to celebrate, and to honor our freedom in the most important and impactful ways. Love you.
Hello, I'm Katherine Hill. I'm President and CEO of Levine Museum of the New South. And on behalf of the staff and board, I want to thank you so much for joining us today for this wonderful celebration. We approached Pat a couple of years ago to see if we could partner with him and with House of Africa to honor Juneteenth. We wanted everyone to know about his wonderful street festival, but we also wanted to give families a chance to learn about this important and under-celebrated holiday. At that time, there were a couple of Juneteenth celebrations in Charlotte. Today, there are Juneteenth activities happening all over the city. Companies that have never before honored this day are offering Juneteenth as a paid holiday for their staff. How wonderful is that? And how sobering, given that the first Juneteenth was 155 years ago. This is a day of celebration, but it's also a day of mourning, it's a day of remembrance, and it's a day of learning. We are so grateful to all of the performers and storytellers who participated with us on this, and of course to Pop and the House of Africa. We are very grateful to our sponsor, Bank of America, who makes so much of our work possible. And we're grateful to the Arts and Science Council. Mostly, we are grateful to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had a wonderful day. And we hope that we will see you next year in person. Thanks so much.